Cool. Abhinav, are we good to begin?
Yes, let's do it.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, so can I see number 3 in the chat to show your little bit of excitement because I don't want to be a person who's just like speaking alone in my room. Guys, little faster, please. Okay. Awesome, guys. So, if you don't know where to chat, no mic section is just above the event stage. Above the event stage. So that's where you go, and that's where you put your questions. So I believe it's not me who's gonna ask the questions. I'm just gonna direct the questions that you put in the chat, and also at the end we're gonna have an exclusive Q&A with the man Abhinav himself. So get a chance to talk to him. And okay, let's begin. All right, greetings everyone. Welcome to that time of the day where we meet people that we look up to, especially one of those social media icons that I've got bombarded with a lot across different platforms is Abhinav himself. I super admire the level to which 10x Designers Cohort today is. It was pretty insane. One of the biggest cohorts in the country. Abhinav, welcome to BlueLearn.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for joining in. I think we're going to have an amazing, very exciting and insights-filled session.
Glad to hear that. Okay, so Abhinav, so would you like to tell us like a little bit of what are you doing right now?
Life? Or today, Thursday.
I think it's a little bit cutting in the beginning and the end. I don't know. The voice is a little breaking.
Oh, okay, I can try. Let me know. You can feel free to interrupt me if it.
It's better now. It's better now. Yeah. Okay. So, Abhinav, want to ask like, what is your current work like, and where you working, and just give a little bit of introduction about how does your day look, how does your work look like for the audience?
For sure. At this point, I'm an independent creator. I run a business, or let's just say a cohort-based course called 10K Designers. Actually started with my YouTube channel, and I was working at Unacademy back then. So I was working at Unacademy as the head of design. We built a lot of the products there, redesigns the entire platform. Amazing time. I had a team I was managing. But eventually I decided I want to do my own thing. So for the last about 2.5 to 3 years, I've been running 10K Designers, which is a cohort-based program and a community for designers.
Got it. So, okay, here let's begin with a basic question, right? So, talking about how you started your journey and why design, because we were talking about those times in UX where we didn't even know that that's a career that's existing. So, how did you get into this?
I think purely by accident. I think I got into it early 2012 when I was around in college, and I did computer science purely because I knew I wanted to build products. I was very deeply influenced by Apple, by Steve Jobs, during that time specifically, even The Social Network, like watching that movie, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to build products, computer science. A year into it, I'm in college, and I'm like, dude, I really suck at this. Like my GPA is suffering. I love designing products. I find computer science so interesting. I don't think this is right for me. And at that point, coincidentally, I kind of discovered design working with some friends of mine. So Varun Maya, he was a friend of mine. We freelanced together. We did a bunch of stuff. And through that process, luckily, I also found myself in a time where startups in India were becoming a thing. It was growing. This was around 2015 by the time I graduated. And as a designer, I suddenly, with all this freelance experience, having designed for US-based clients and just starting with fests, posters, and eventually making myself a freelancer straight out of college, not sitting for jobs, I found myself with a highly valuable skill, which is designing products. And India was going through a growth stage. And so I've been working with startups ever since then.
Got it. Were you in Manipal too back then?
Yeah, I was in Manipal.
Right. Awesome. This is one of those stories which everybody looks up to, especially how Varun Maya and the couple of friends. And I believe you were a part of the same team, right? Were you? as you
Yeah,
mentioned.
and in fact, Varun and I, we co-authored this book called Pajama Profit, which is
Awesome.
about freelancing,
Right.
and that was really fun to write as well. Like a nice project between us.
Hmm. Sounds like a roller coaster. And I think I have a couple of questions throughout this path. So, okay. So here we go for another question, right? So, as you before mentioned, that you're the head of design at Unacademy. Looking at the position where Unacademy today is, I personally, okay, this is just my personal opinion. I believe Unacademy's design is way better than Byju's because for me personally, I feel Unacademy follows a lot of minimalism and a lot of. I love the placements. So, okay, to build a team which is as capable of that in the very beginning, it's not an easy story, right? So, how was your experience back then, and what did you have in mind back then?
An amazing opportunity when I first found it. I wasn't actually looking for a job. I was actually doing another startup back then. I was building a music app, a social music app, of like Discord voice, but it was purely based for music. But anyways, it was pretty early for Unacademy back then. I was, I think, employee number 40 something, so quite early. And for the first 1 or 2 years, my first year there, it was just me and two other designers. So I built a very small team. We created two separate teams, in fact, a product team and then a creative team, which was led by Sneha. That was a really good time. I think interesting observation you made between Baiju and Unacademy. The thing that drew me to Unacademy was their product culture. Between Unacademy and other, let's just say, edtech platforms, within the team there was a clear focus that said, "Hey, we're not going to be sales driven. The company, we're not going to focus on how do we get as many salespeople out there. We're going to go with product based growth." Means in a space like education where it's totally a wide space, you can design experiences for people to learn, and a lot of the stuff we designed was live experiences eventually. That was an amazing playing field. So being product driven, being working with Gaurav, the CEO, who also cares a lot about brand. Like I think he is one of the most brand focused CEOs that I've worked with. Having that culture where everybody knows design is important, whether that's for brand or for product, and being from a mindset where it's product led growth, that has probably led to what an academy is today. And of course, I don't lead the team there anymore. Very capable team, much bigger than when I was there. It was great to be able to be a part of that journey and set up that foundation for today for a company that's worth $3.4 billion.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Abhinav, can I ask you to like reconnect because I think it's a network glitch. The voice is like breaking at the beginning at the end.
Sure, I can do that.
Okay. All right. So, guys, can I see your questions? Things that you want me to ask. Guys, you can put that in the no mic section. Awesome. Abhinav. Wait, wait, wait. Abhinav, you can just press the button and you'll be on stage. All right.
Got it. Yes.
Awesome, Abhinav. Abhinav, also to double check, there is noise suppression, right? We can just turn that off.
Sure.
Cool. So resuming back, you were mentioning about the team today, the product driven approach that uh, the CEO of an academy had since back then. And today, I think this is one of the core values because, okay, one of the things that we are pretty much aware about is how Byju's is completely sales driven. And I believe this is something very interesting. Would you want to talk a little bit more about how design is integrated into what today an academy stands for?
Absolutely. So, when we were designing the product, we realized that designing for education is very different from designing for other fields. And one simple example of this I can give you is, let's say you were designing an e-commerce platform. You're designing something like Flipkart. Now, e-commerce as a field, there are pretty much established patterns out there. You find a page, it's a collection page, you find a product, you go through reviews, that journey has been around for decades. Now, when you look at something like education, is a much more wider design space, because of course we started similar to YouTube, started as a platform. Anybody, we had educators that were onboarded, creating content. It was pre-recorded content, but still bite-sized. And it reached a point. But then once we started thinking about the core problem, and we said, how do we create a platform that's engaging, platform that mimics or actually way exceeds the experience of being in a real classroom? How do we design something for the future? How do we design for the next stage of growth? All of this together, we were able to design a live learning platform. And I think that today is just Unacademy Plus, what you see on the main website. But that kind of answer the question. I can go in a very particular direction too. But that kind of having that mindset where it is this open space, right? Which is streaming for gaming. How do you design streaming for education? How do you create this experience where people feel that presence, that they are in the same room as this educator? They can feel that presence and they can go through this transformational journey for a lot of these people. So was an amazing design space to play in.
See, that experience and that approach of making people feel in a same ambience and environment is a whole different story, and sounds pretty awesome, man. So okay, like connecting a dot. So what do you think is a differentiating factor between a design, a good design, to a great design? So what's that difference for you?
I'm going to give a very non-traditional answer, right? My personal belief is design is all about process, which is, it's very easy to somehow come up with a design that kind of works once. You can do it twice, you can do it 3 times. But to reach a point of excellence, you are doing this every single day, or a product that is has millions of users, and now you're suddenly competing at a world level. I think the main differentiator comes down to process. How do you create a design process that integrates all of the other people that are working with you, whether that's product managers, engineers, CEO, whoever the founder is, as well as your users, to consistently ship great design. And I think that is what separates somebody who can, use Figma and, ek do pages bana diye, app screen bana di, somebody who can consistently do that and create products at scale. So personally, for me, process is something that I deeply, deeply care about.
Pretty interesting. That level of consistency in holding the same process over a period of time is a game changer, according to you. Is this correct?
Yes, absolutely. And
Pretty
this is
awesome.
true at a personal level
Mm-hmm.
of any one of you as a designer, but it's also true at a team level. When you're working in that high performance team or leading a team of designers with this kind of audacious goal of creating a live learning platform for millions of users, you need your process to go right. And it's a constant refining mechanism is applied to make sure it's improving over time.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. So got this cleared, but going a step deep inside. So what are some of the KPIs that you look into? Or let's say not just you, but any designer as a sense to measure between designs. So what do you look into?
For sure. Now, different types of metrics, and I'll take a few examples because I know a lot of you here might just not know too much about it in depth. But let's take an example of Instagram Reels. I'm sure a lot of you, even if you never designed a website or a product or an app, you've probably designed an Instagram Reel or a short video. There is a certain process you go through. There is a certain scripting that you do in your mind. There is a certain sequence that you apply. Now, KPI for that, for example, you would look at your views. You would probably look at your retention, right? Similarly, whenever you're designing a product, you try to identify what that metric is. It makes sense. So for example, if I was designing a landing page, a web page for this particular event, this event that we're having, KPI that I would measure would be what's my conversion rate? What's the number of people coming in and then the number of people that click through? I would try to define this. So I don't know if there's a general way you can apply to any process, to any design in general, but usually it's a good idea to think about your product, think about your user, think about how they are interacting. Then you think about the goals. You think about what does this user or what does this person who's just come to my product, what do they want to do? Are they able to do it? So you try to measure that. Then you think in terms of the business, which is this business, for it to have put up this website, it has some goals. Are those goals being achieved? And then you measure that. So that is in general how I approach that.
Sounds pretty awesome. So here's a question. I mean, this is like a block one question. What drives you, Abhinav? What drives you every day?
What drives me just limit.
Mhm.
What drives me is the fact that I haven't reached the limit of what I can create. Because when I was starting out, it was literally just Photoshop. I was like, okay, how do I learn Photoshop? I made a poster. Then I made posters for a fest. I made a t-shirt. Then I made a website. Then I made apps. And that hasn't stopped for me yet, right? At this point, I'm trying to create these live experiences where we teach design,
Correct.
cohorts. I'm, involved deeply with YouTube, coming back, trying to plan all of that. So the fact that as a designer or as a creator, there's still so much more that I can still do, despite having spent nearly maybe close to 10 years doing this. That is really exciting to me.
Dude, this journey completely sounds like Raymond Loewy's. I hope you're aware of Raymond Loewy, the man who literally shaped this entire century. Are you aware of him?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So this is the guy who created the iconic, let's say, Shell ka logo, and nearly at least like 30, 40 logos that we see today of the multi-billion-dollar companies have been designed by him. At the same time, everybody thought that he's just a logo designer, and then he got into industrial product design. That's when he created the world's first high-performance locomotive engine, which is even today looked at as one of the best designs of all time. And later he got into automobile design, and he designed a car. I'm so sorry, I'm so bad with the car name. That today that is seen as the world's most, let's say, beautiful looking car of all time. I mean, it's been made like 40, 50 years ago. And later he got into product design, and then he made the iconic Coca-Cola bottle design, which we use even today. So
Yes.
he's pretty awesome, and he never thought. I mean, by the way, he's the one who made the Air Force One car first design.
Oh, nice. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So he's everywhere. Also, by the way, he worked for the International Space Station with NASA.
Nice. And that's what I think excites most people that want to get into the space. I think all of us here have created some stuff. I don't think it's possible to be on the internet today and not create. You are creating tweets, you are creating stories. These stories seem to be headed in a audio visual direction, which is you're using visuals, voice, video, and storytelling. And I think at some point it just clicks for most creators like, hey, if I can make this, what else is out there that I can make? And if I'm able to do this, is there something else that actually lets me practice my design process of taking an idea and bringing it to reality? And then can I also do this in different forms? Can I experiment with video, with web, with animation, with motion, with products? So I think very fulfilling to be a designer because you can literally explore so much.
Correct. Makes sense. Totally. So, okay, here's a question from the chat. So people are so there's KK who's asking about how do you get inspiration from design? So a lot of designers go to Dribble, a lot of people go to Pinterest. So what's your space?
Personally, I think I find my inspiration through repetition, which is whenever I'm designing a problem, I think as a designer, the first thing you think about is how do you put yourself in the shoes of the user. So
Hmm.
it's almost sometimes it's literally a process of sitting down and thinking real hard. I was the user and I was trying to do this. How would I do it? And I'm literally trying to imagine in my head in great detail how that would go. Now suddenly I'm like, oh, okay, so that's the case. And switching lenses, how do I design something that solves exactly that? So I imagine a lot, right? That's one of the reasons why I go out for walks and stuff, like just spend time outdoors because I'm just thinking about it and I'm just
Hmm.
thinking through all of these scenarios. Other than that, my inspiration, it comes from everywhere. Like I try as much as possible to save things that I come across because very this is a very practical tip for anybody who wants to get better at design.
Hmm.
Anytime you come across something that you think is cool, actually take a screenshot and have a huge folder where you collect what you think is good design. It can be video, it can be photo, it can be a nice tweet that you saw, it can be something else. Over time, as you collect these references, you're like, wow, um, I now have a base of inspiration that I can go back to. So that I would definitely suggest. Document a lot. Take screenshots of your work, of other people's work, and then using this, see what else you can come up with.
Hmm. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay. So going a step forward to this, as a point of finding inspiration from. So a lot of creators talk about the creator block, right? The blank page problem. So how do you try to come out of that?
I think personally, the way I think about the blank page problem, which is you open, like Figma, or you open something and you're just sitting on that blank page.
Hmm.
The way I think about it is it's usually that the gap you're trying to jump is too big. Just you have this vision of what you want the design to be, maybe, or you just have this idea that Aj, we're gonna make something amazing. You sit down and the gap is too big. You're like, dude, make something amazing starting from zero. I just can't imagine. It's just so much to do. And you have no idea how do you start even walking that path. That's the blank page problem. Solution to that is usually to start in some smaller way, which is you want to reduce that gap of this amazing thing you have in your mind and what you have in front of you, which is if it's a blank page, it's nothing. Or even if it's creative block, you've done it to a certain point and now you feel like you're stuck. Personally, I feel the way I would overcome that is literally to just go through repetition. Iterate a little bit more. Whatever you've done, try to create variations of it. When you go through that, I think mind just gets into that mode where you are now grappling with these issues, with these tiny issues. And that typically in any type of creative work turns into momentum. Now you're like, oh, okay, now I'm in flow. Now I have some more ideas I want to try. My solution to the blank page problem is literally reduce the gap, number one. Number two, sometimes you just have to zoom out. I think it's very easy to get caught up in the depths, in the weeds of whatever it is you're designing. Sometimes you really have to zoom out, go for a walk, literally go eat a cornetto, do something weird, get out of the room that you're in,
Yeah.
go for a chai sutta break or whatever. That really helps.
Hmm. Yeah, I love the cornetto idea. Anyway, so coming back onto the point of let's say the designing. So here's a question that comes right, like being a UX designer. So let's say if there is a UX designer who is qualified to be freelanceable, or does that person need to stick with one single company, or I mean, as a job, or does that person can take multiple gigs at the same time? So what's your opinion on this cloud?
I think design is definitely a great freelancing skill. However, personally, I find there are these two approaches where I think when people start out, people do general freelancing. So, for example, my own example, when I started out, I would do posters, I would do random websites, random apps. If somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, I want you to edit a video," I'd be like, "Haha, let's do it." Over time, you then start niching down, where you're like, "Okay, these freelance projects, I am going to do specifically web design. Why? Because maybe web design pays me the best, or out of all your experience, you realize that the clients in this thing are better. So, see, I think it comes down to skills. A very interesting thing about design is people typically like to work in different mediums. So, somebody who's a UX designer, who's a product designer, might work with websites and apps, but very likely that on the side they're exploring 3D, exploring motion design, they're exploring videos. So definitely a freelanceable skill. I definitely would not suggest. Um, I would definitely suggest giving it a shot. But then there are of course trade-offs. I think being in a company as a product designer might not get to do all of these random explorations around, 3D, this, that. You really go down and you say, hey, I'm a product designer. I'm going to show up 5 days a week and I'm going to design products. That focus, you're able to do that with a company. Ideally, you're able to do it with a company that's growing. Startups are gives you a very interesting experience where you're able to grow with the product. You're able to grow with the company. These features you've designed, they actually go out. They get people use them. You get back data, and you're able to iterate and work even further. So it's definitely possible. Freelance, full time. My suggestion is you have to try both to know what's good for you. And whenever that might be, whatever you want to go with first, definitely need to do both if you want to make a decision.
Correct. Okay, so after over the last 3-4 years, I believe there is a huge UI UX wave. So okay, at this point, do you think the entire idea of becoming a designer is becoming a little bit of glorification, or what do you see the market's opinion towards the reality is?
Yeah. I would say we're just getting started, to be honest. And of course, it's taken me many years to come to this view because when I started out, UI UX design in India was a really bad idea. It was pretty much very little demand. So I would mostly freelance back then, work with US based clients who were making apps for the App Store. The App Store had come out a couple years before that. There's a lot of stuff happening just in India. Like, of course, all of people are familiar with this, but we're going to do a small quiz, okay? Just to get you all moving. I want you all to come to the No Mic channel, and I'm going to ask you a question. And don't Google this, please. How many smartphone users do you think there are in India? If you had to just guess the chat, I want to see some answers. I'm just trying to make a point. 100 million? 700 million? 100 billion? No. I think you meant million. Yeah. Okay, so the answer is around 700 million. Okay, 750 million. And the internet penetration in India is around 40 something. Right? Only about 40%, 45% of Indians have the internet. Now, as that number grows, I think India is going to be a very interesting market to design for. And I think that is where design comes in. Because be able to design for the Indian user requires a lot of cultural understanding that you cannot. Let me just say somebody outside India would have a difficult time designing for. But outside of that, I think design be a big differentiator. Right? People think design is, the goal of design is to make things look pretty. Of course, it is. But making things look pretty is a pretty big competitive advantage in business. It helps you stand out in a crowded environment. These experiences, products, services that you design, they solve problems for people. It might mean you're ordering, somebody to come and fix your AC from Urban Clap. Designing that product where a AC repair person has an app where they get their requests, they make their living through that entire app. And on the other side, users to be able to order this kind of experience in a very nice way, it's not a very straightforward problem to solve. You run into a lot of issues. So solving problems is a big part of this. So personally, I think with the level that we're at, terms of the growth of internet in India, the growth of products in India, as well as venture funding in India for startups, which has shot up if you look at the data for the last couple of years. Designers are in a unique place where they can help solve these problems, a lot of which have never been designed before. And I think it's just very, very early for us this decade for design. I am super excited for it. But yeah, that's a little bit about how I'm thinking about it.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Abhinav, so this is something that happened a few days ago when we first announced in the community that, and also when I told my inner circle saying that Abhinav is coming to BlueLearn, they were literally tripping. I mean, from a point of let's say 2014 Abhinav to today, where he genuinely has an extreme craze, and people strive to understand what's going inside your mind. So, how did you build yourself? I mean, I don't just mean the social media game, but the entire aspect.
I think I tend to look at it's just been experience, right? The boring answer is it's just been experience. And none of it is very secret experience. It's all up on my LinkedIn. People can see what I've been up to. I think beyond that, from a very mindset level, try to look at once you're a creator, once you're creating, it's sometimes limiting to just call yourself a video editor, or call yourself, I design social media posters. I'm a web designer. Like, as a creative person, you always want to think. You're always thinking about what more can I do with the skill that I have. What products, services, something that I can create that other people can use.
Got it. I must say, couple of people whom I work with, I mean, even they were a part of one of the early cohorts of the 10K designers cohort. And
Nice.
yeah, even till today, they talk about what has that been, the value addition to what they are today.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Awesome. I mean, for me, I thought of myself as a UI UX designer. Then a couple of years ago, I was like, I don't think I'm just going to be doing UI and user experience throughout my life. Looking at it as a general creator, I have a very project-based approach to life. I'm like, let's just do different projects. Collaboration with Varun, writing a book, sure, let's do that as a project. YouTube, it seems to be interesting, cool, let's do that as a project. Web3, I got into NFTs massively last year, probably a distraction from my main thing. That was a very interesting project. With these projects, I'm then able to synthesize what it was like for me. So I try not to limit myself. I know I have my core competency in product design. I love to explore. So I think that's really my key.
Sounds pretty awesome, Abhinav. Abhinav, so just let me know if we are good to start with the Q&As. If you're okay with that, let's bring people on stage.
Let's do that.
Awesome. Guys, just raise your hand and we will bring you onto the stage. Okay. Hi, Farid.
Hi Chandan, hi Abhinav. So I have a question that a person who has, let's say, has decided to learn UI UX design from YouTube, right? Let's say he can't afford the cohort of 10K designers, and he has decided to learn from YouTube, right? So first of all, what channels would you recommend to learn complete UI UX design? Second, once we have finished that, learning the whole Figma part and learning the basic mindset of a designer and all the things, and we have done, let's say, a little bit projects meanwhile, then how do we get into the market, whether it be as a freelancer or as an intern or or seeking as a job in a startup? How should we go about it?
Great question, man. I would love to answer that. I would say YouTube is actually a great place to start. Some channels that I would recommend, I would definitely recommend Ansh Mehra's channel. He has a lot of basics of Figma stuff I think people will find useful. I have a design crash course playlist, which is about Figma, about UI, UX, these terms. That definitely I would suggest people go through that. It's a little old at this point, and I'm planning to update it in the next couple of weeks. I would definitely suggest that. Number three, I would suggest Whiteboard, whiteboard.fm. That is also something I run, of course. but that is more focused on interviews with designers. That can really help you understand what process do designers follow, what do they put in their case studies, how do people in a hiring position conduct interviews. Board.fm, great for that. There's a bunch of other channels. I would suggest, going through recommendations and finding. These would be my top 3 recommendations. But beyond that, once you have the skill, once you can make stuff in Figma, that's when YouTube gets a little limiting, is what I feel. Because the biggest problem with YouTube is it doesn't give you momentum to move forward. It's great for learning, but beyond that, once you actually learned it, all about practice. Practice is really the main important thing. And it might sound very obvious, like, practice. But a lot of people don't realize that. Learning Figma, making one web page, very different from doing that 5 days a week, every single day. And that is when you really get into the depths of process. How do you make things? How do you really become a problem solver where you're solving problems rather than just somebody who's a Photoshop user or a Figma user? I'm not sure what would be the best way to practice. Personally, I think it's trying to get freelance projects, trying to get internships, trying to get jobs. Information is definitely available on YouTube. What's not available on YouTube is just the motivation to really do all of this. I would definitely suggest having all your work in a good place. As a self-taught designer, the thing that you need to do a lot, be the biggest cheerleader of your own work. You need to be posting your work online. You need to be posting it in depth. You need to be talking about your process. You need to be talking about, yes, I made this in Figma. This is how I solve problems. This is my problem solving process. Because in the end, that's what startups are looking for. That's what companies are looking for. That's one of the core roles of a designer. The self-taught designer, if you're able to publicly do that, it's a good lead. It's a good way to get leads for freelance. Or if you want to do more of a job, it's a good way to just get discovered. So that would be my suggestion to you.
That's great. Thank you so much, sir. I've been watching your content since so long, and this is the first time I got the opportunity to talk to you. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Really glad I was able to talk to you, bro.
Okay, let's go to the next person. Saksham, I believe. Okay. Hi, man.
Hi, hi. Uh,
What's
So
up, Saksham?
yeah, so my question is actually I applied to a university 4-year program in Bachelor's of Design in UI UX, but after I told it to people who are in industry, they told me you shouldn't go for a degree, you should go for a normal course. Most of them recommended your 10K designer cohort, but the thing is, I'm from a commerce background, so my parents told me to have a degree, like the parents mentality, I can say, that go for a degree, it can be safe and all. But does it really matter that you have to need a degree, or it will work as a self thought and not having like some networks in the industry?
Let me just ask you some questions here, some
Yeah,
follow-ups.
yeah,
Is there a specific university you had in mind
yeah. I already applied it, and like
for masters or
no, no,
bachelor?
no, bachelor's. I'm currently in. I just passed my class 12.
Got it. Dude, from the parents' side of thing, obviously I understand, right? Even when I was in college, I was like, bro, like I really want to just drop out and spend all my time, doing this freelance stuff. Unable to convince. So the point is, undergrad, yeah, it's a bit of a thing with your parents. You will have to figure out. I don't think there's any harm, but I will tell you this: even if you go for a 4-year program, there is still a lot of self-learning that you will just have to do by yourself. Which is these programs. The point is the internet moves really fast. Products move really fast. There's an iOS update, every month or every couple of months. So what they teach you in college, there's definitely will be some gap. You will always have to kind of keep closing that gap. Whether it's working on your own projects, connecting with designers in the industry, college cannot help you with those things. You definitely need to do that. Beyond that, if the question is more about do employers really care about this? My perspective is no, right? Through my experience, my own hiring experience at Unacademy, even now, I think we've run about 5 cohorts. Do not really ask for a degree. And one of the main reasons for that is a degree is no guarantee that you're going to be good at designing products. Because NID is in college, they will teach you design, but will they teach you how to design digital products? Really, they will teach you more about process. They will teach you about important things that might not be so important when it comes to a startup environment. So, to answer your question, again, there is no good, bad, there is no better, worse. It's really trade-offs. And I think if the question was, should I do a master's? I would suggest, for going abroad, definitely go for it. But you do not need a master's. You do not really need formal education. What you need is information. At the bare minimum, you need YouTube. You need the motivation to just keep moving forward, making projects, publishing them. And number 3, making relationships with people. And of course, you can enroll in the cohort to get all of that and more. But yeah, man, I'm not sure. I think in the end, you're going to end up going to college because it's undergrad and Indian parents. I know how that works. But make sure that even once you're in college, don't think college is going to solve the problem for you. You're still going to have to do a lot of work, and this is going to be outside of your college stuff.
Thank you so much, Mohit. Thank you.
For sure, bro.
It
All right.
really most of my problems. Thank you.
All right. So next up is Ajay. Ajay, you can have accepted your request. Okay. The meantime, Hardik, you can press that button and you'll be on stage. Hi, Hardik.
Hi Chandan. Hi Abhinav.
What's up, Hardik?
Well, Abhinav, I'm really confused about this one thing that I'm in my second year of BBA and I want to go either in product management or product design. But I'm like not really sure which one should I choose. Like people say for product management, you should have a prior experience in like sales or product design or anything. But the thing is that I'm not really sure where should I go. So like if you can help me out.
Got it. Right about that. I think product management is a slightly tricky field to get into because it requires you to have some cross-functional experience. For example, if you are somebody with 2 years of design experience, actually is a very straightforward path to get into product management because you know how to work with products. You are designing products. Similarly, if you were a developer, you would have a straight path to product management because you're now still have product hands-on experience making that. There are also business PMs. If you have business experience, you get into product management, but from a business angle. All of these are ways you can enter into product management from a different field. As a fresher, I still don't know what the best way is. Personally, I would suggest number 1, learning information. From a purely information perspective, do you understand the field and do you understand what product managers do on an everyday basis? Just having that learning is useful. Second suggestion might be to actually check out some product management cohorts. Now, the interesting thing about cohorts is imagine instead of going for a 4-year degree, you could just do 1 semester. That's almost like what cohorts are. It's about 3 months, it's live, you have to show up, you have to do the work, you have to talk to people, you have to attend these physical meetups. I think that's a great way to get into a field. I would suggest looking for maybe some product management cohorts or even product design cohorts if you would like to get some hands-on experience with it. But I'm not sure beyond that. I actually should probably look into what would be good ways for students to get into product management.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Abhinav. Thank you for that.
Sure, bro.
All right. So, Ajay, you can go ahead with your question.
Yeah, thanks, Chandan, and hey, Abhinav.
Hey, Ajay.
Yeah, so I have a really cool situation over here. I think most of beginner UX designer would be able to relate with me. So we have seen this that when we are building a portfolio and creating all those mock projects for UX design, we tend to perform the entire design process that we have, whether it is design stage, brainstorming stage, ideation, defining, and all that double diamond process, all that process that we have known. But when we actually get our first job in a startup, let's say, there is a very fast-paced environment that's happening that's happening in the startup, in your job specifically. You quickly get a problem statement from the product managers, or let's say co-founders, and you quickly have to wireframe for it and do a design of it. So you don't get the chance, or let's say time to do all that stuff that you have practiced so far, the user
Mhm.
interviews, the user testing, and all of that. So how should a beginner UX designer keep himself engaged in all those all those processes that he has practiced, all those techniques and methods that he has done so far?
Some question, bro, Ajay. Um, what's the answer to that? Think misconception that designers in the early stages of their career have. This is something I had too. That process is a fixed thing. Now, literally, right now, if any of you here, you open a new tab, search for design process, go to Google Images, you see so many answers, all of them conflicting with each other. Right? They all say the design process is something else. Use different terms, different number of steps. Right? You probably will not find one single satisfying answer. You'll find many answers. The thing to understand is there is no one universal fixed design process that ideal scenario you would do it, but startups don't have time, so they don't do it. That's false. Usually what it is process without constraints, very different process with constraints. What does that mean? Process without constraints, you are designing something for yourself. If you're designing for a hypothetical scenario, there's very few real constraints. So there's no real client. They will probably not have opinions where they say नहीं ये नहीं करना है, ये करो, मैं कह रहा हूँ इसलिए करो. Or you probably will not have real data to see, okay,
By the way, Abhinav, if you're saying something, we're not able to hear that. Abhinav, still no, nothing.
give me one sec. I'm just
Yeah, you're back. You're back. You're back.
So that's process without constraints. You're designing in a hypothetical scenario. But when you work in a startup, the same process that worked in a hypothetical scenario will not work in a real world scenario. So rather than staying rigid and saying, nahi, there is a certain way of doing things and what we're doing here is kind of wrong, what you actually have to do is try to find a new process. Each startup has a certain way they work. There are certain people in the team. There are certain people you will have to work with on an everyday basis, on a weekly basis. So the challenge for a designer joining a startup is how do I create a process that works with these constraints? Constraint will be deadlines. Typically, this is the time that we have. These are the people that we work with. We have to work with business team, PM team, whoever it might be. And really finding that balance. But to give you some practical points, data points around this as well. Academy, let's say we were designing a new feature. Of course, it was a startup. It is kind of a startup culture there. It was a startup when I joined as well. You would have maybe a week to design it, right? And that works. Now, if in that week I was trying to fit, oh fuck, now I have a week and I need to do user interviews, user research, three other things that YouTuber told me about, affinity mapping, user flows, user personas. Probably don't have the time to fit that into a week. But approaching this from a first principles view, where you're like, okay, what's the problem we're trying to solve here? Okay, who are we trying to solve this for? Okay, have we tried solving this problem before in the previous version of the app? Okay, based on this, you try explore, and you find a solution. So the real challenge with designers is there is no one process. You have to find a process that works for you. It will be different in different companies. It's different in a small startup versus a big startup. It's different if you're a solo designer in a company versus, let's say, 3, 4 designers. It's also different when it's a much bigger company where you have 20 designers, you have 40, 50. Some companies, not really in India, companies abroad, you've got 200 designers on your team. But now you're working on smaller problems. The process in each of these scenarios is going to be different. And ideally, you want to try finding what that is for you, your team members, and try to make it work that way.
All right, yeah. So essentially, what you mean, it boils down to the fact that the design process is not a rigid sort of pathwork that you can follow. It's like a flexible thing that you have to come up with when you join a product team or a startup that suits your needs or the startup whole product development cycle. Is that right?
Definitely. And one thing to consider is a lot of these processes that you will come across online have not been made for an Indian perspective. Right? Process in the end is a way of doing things with people to get a certain outcome. So a lot of the process you come across might just be for a corporate environment. It might be for a US corporate environment. It might mean for a, for a design school or academic environment. Yeah, just something to keep in mind.
All right, that's a really good insight, Abhinav. Thank you so much.
Welcome, bro. Thanks for asking.
All right. So next up is Cosmos. Cosmos, I've sent you the request. Okay. Right. Cosmos,
Yeah,
you can go ahead.
yeah. Hi, Abhinav. Hi, Chandan. Thanks for
Hey,
the opportunity. Yeah, it was valuable. Okay, so my question is, what's your thoughts on DALI E2, DALI 2, and DALI 2,
got it.
and how should someone use these tools for designers and non-designers?
That's a great question, bro. And I'm going to actually show you with an example. Now, the thing to understand about DALI 2 is it's a tool. If you're a designer, you want to try to figure out where in my process can I use these tools. It can help you generate variations really fast, variations that normally would have taken you much longer. It's not really great for product design, for screens, for UI, but pretty good for everything else. I'll say one tip that I would want you all to remember is, and the reason I'm thinking of this, I've seen so many people get DALI to access, but they get stuck on the prompts. They're like, oh my God, like it just looks shit, or I'm not able to come up with something, or I'm able to come up with something, but I don't know what to do with this. I'm going to show you a very simple example of how a designer can do this. Okay. Imagine as a designer, you got a brief that you need to design. This is not a product designer. So I'll say you get a brief where you have to design a visualization of this session right now. This session right now, I am in Copenhagen. I'm live. I have a couple, about just say a couple hundred people watching later on YouTube. How do you design a nice visual for this? Right? Typically, as a designer, your job is to solve problems. A lot of people get panicked when they say DALI 2 because they're like, shit, like, won't the client or whoever asked directly go to DALI 2 and do this? Why would they even need a designer? Very important thing to remember is our job as designers is to solve problems, then create solutions. So I'm going to show you an example of what would happen if I typed this exact prompt into DALI 2. I'm just going to send this image in the chat actually. One sec. Okay, I'm going to share to BlueLearn. Okay, while that's going, I think DALI 2 will definitely not replace designers, because in the end, the really good designers, people who actually solve problems, will end up using DALI 2 to improve their own skill. Right? As let's say a designer, if I have to make something, I am definitely going to use DALI 2, and I'm going to give myself a competitive advantage by using it. Similarly, visual designers, very low level, right? The base, right? If you had to create a tiered list, people who are just tool users, right? I just use Photoshop. I'm a Photoshop user. Definitely have a difficult time. DALI 2 can do this way faster than you can. But designers who are more of problem solvers probably not face a problem, because the thing you have to realize is you are solving problems for clients. DALI 2 the tool that the client can use, but they still need somebody to give them direction. And bro, let me just share this example. Why this is taking so long. I want to just share this in the chat.
Abhinav, you can just send me on WhatsApp and I'm gonna put it over here.
Okay, cool. Just gonna try this once more.
Yeah.
Screen share. Huh, I could have screen shared.
No. On stage, I don't think there is a
No
screen
worries.
share
I
button.
just sent a screenshot. Okay.
All right. Yes, they're here.
So if I were to actually type this, create a visualization of a live stream with hundreds of viewers, and, since we're doing this on the BlueLearn channel, I added that in there. In blue, I said, blue vaporwave style. I actually tried a bunch of them. But these results look really bad. Like, this is nothing what I imagined. What I was imagining when I said create a visualization, I'm thinking of me standing on stage, these screens floating around, there are people, and I want to show this visual representation of what it looks like to be in a live stream, a creative representation. Now, prompts. Now, this is a very practical tip. When you're designing a prompt for DALI 2, you need to exactly describe what you want it to make. Right? It's like you are saying, make me an image of a person standing on stage with this in this style, and there's this happening in the background or foreground, and make this a 3D render. That's a solution. Typically, the reason people hire designers is to solve problems. How do you even reach to the point where you know exactly what you need to do? Right? So I hope you're able to see the gap here. So I'm actually very excited about DALI 2. I have started using DALI 2 in my own projects. In fact, we had an assignment in 10K Designers that I think just is wrapping up this week. A lot of designers use DALI 2 to make the illustrations for their websites. They said, normally I would use I would try stock photo. I would try finding free resources. I would try to find something that's copyright free. Now they're just creating illustrations for their page. They're able to create a cohesive design through it. I would suggest, designers definitely check out DALI 2, try to use it, and try to actually use it in a real project to see how it can be useful to you.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. Yeah, enjoyed it. Bye.
Awesome, bro. Thanks for asking this.
Thank you,
Guys,
for
and by the way, to find more interesting stuff like that, especially these discussions are happening on the BlueLearn app. Other than that, so here we go. Below the Nomad section is where you can find a DALI 2 prompt section. You guys can put in your prompts if you don't have DALI, or you can do the other way as well. So yeah, that's about it. Okay, Sagar, you can go next.
Hi, Abhinav. Am I audible?
Sagar, what's up?
Yeah. My question is basically, I'm someone who has less aesthetic sense, or who doesn't appreciate more about design and all. So, how can I cultivate things? This is my basic question. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a follow up, okay? Can you name something that you think has good design?
I like Stripe Press website. Like of the most I come across, I feel that is really awesome. Yeah.
Why is it so awesome? What do you like about it?
Basically, the colors. Those colors are mesmerizing. I just keep looking at it.
Anything else outside of maybe digital products that you find is, designed nicely?
I mean, those are just basically book covers, and like everything is just nice to see, and feel even. Touch those covers, and everything is just good to. It's completely different from what we see normally,
Hmm.
The
Right.
pictures and all inside them
Yeah.
are good to look.
So what I would suggest, right? I have two suggestions for you. The reason I asked that question is because it's a very human thing to appreciate good design. I think all of us, even if we're not able to sometimes say why this is good design or what's so great about it,
Mm-hmm.
we look at something, we're like, huh, that's good design. Sometimes it's very intuitive. Other times you can
Okay.
look at two designs and you can say, huh, this one looks better. Or, let's say Swiggy and Zomato.
Hmm.
You might prefer, let me just ask you, what do you use, Swiggy or Zomato? Order.
I don't use both of them. Sorry.
Okay. Cool, cool. So, definitely there are preferences that way. So my first suggestion would be select what you think is good design. Let's say your goal is to actually make products. It's to make websites, apps. Select examples of what you think is good and try to see what the pattern is. What makes it good? Can I deconstruct this and say, okay, Swiggy, this is just a hypothetical example. Swiggy has really good page structure. Or this other app, like you said, Stripe, and I think somebody shared not Stripe Press, but somebody shared stripe.com. You might look at that and you might say, you know what? I like how they've done that gradient style on top. So
Okay.
collecting these examples. Next time you're designing something, go back to that folder and say, can I implement some of these things that I thought were good design in my own design? I might see this text effect, like this big bold text, and I'm like, let me try literally copying this or making something close to it. And as you do this, you are basically becoming DALI 2. Right? What does DALI 2 do? They've got a big repository of images, looks at what these patterns are, it tries to mix them up and create something new. As a individual, if you want to improve your design style, first you need to grow your training set, which is examples in your mind or collected somewhere which you think is good design. Then you need to deconstruct this and say, okay, this is what makes it good. These are the elements that make it good. Then those elements, you need to combine them in new, interesting ways. So just pretend you're DALI 2, collect
Okay.
examples, deconstruct, and make more stuff.
Sounds great. Like what are some places where I can find like those repositories which you talk about DALI too, like aesthetics or designs.
I should definitely share a few. Okay. If you want to check out websites, you can check out the site called, I'm going to just put it in the chat, landingfolio.com. This has a bunch of landing pages, and they've even done the work of sorting this by elements, like they've deconstructed elements. You can actually check that out. Similarly, if you want to check the same thing out for websites, check out the site called Mobbin, where you can literally find screenshots, filter them by patterns, see, these 20 apps, how do they do onboarding? How do they do gamification? See some of these patterns, save it, take screenshots. And I also have a similar product that, in fact, I have designed around this, UI Sources, where you can also just find this. So these are some sites where you can do it. But other than that, I think it's more about a habit. Get in the habit of constantly screenshotting stuff. Your phone, your camera roll will probably have a lot of screenshots. Every designer I have seen, that's pretty much true. Similarly, your computer, you want to just automatically sync all your screenshots to Google Drive. So then you have this huge folder and you want to review that often.
Perfect, perfect. Sounds good. I'll just try to make it a habit, okay? To see these things every day and act on it accordingly. Thanks.
I'm going to
All right.
share one more thing in the chat around this, but you can check that out later, bro.
Sure.
Manav, you can go next.
Hello, hi, Abhinav.
Uh,
Uh, Hi. So I have one question. So, for example, if I'm freelancing I'm kind of starting freelancing because I took some gigs before, but those were like just ki mil gayi types to kar li. So yeah, so like I kind of want to start freelancing seriously now, and the major thing that I struggle with is how to price, because I don't have any base on which I can like develop my price. How do I price my work? Because this is kind of my first steps. So I don't want to like undermine my work too, because that is the first base that it's setting for my further projects. But I don't want to like set it up too high too, because it's my first project. So any tips on how to price your work in a way?
What kind of projects did you say again?
They are like UI UX projects, branding projects.
Got it.
Hmm.
And this is a bit of a personal question, but your last project, what did you charge for it?
It was 6K. It was like a blog kind of website.
Okay.
So that was kind of my first paid project too.
Got it.
Hmm. Like
One general,
and
yeah.
another
Okay.
addition, like I watched like a lot of like pricing really intrigues me, so I watched a lot of Christo Flux Academy and stuff. But I
Nice.
feel those are like cool, but they kind of don't apply at what stage I am, and yeah,
Not
in
very
my
basic also,
geography.
the examples. Very basic,
Sorry.
the examples.
Huh.
Okay, cool. So one general tip that I will definitely share is you want to be increasing the price with every project. You definitely want to be doing that. You want to keep increasing it. And pricing is definitely a very interesting field because it's all about perception. Now, there are, the common question somebody asks is, what's the standard rate for a website? And somebody else might say, okay, you know what? I actually charged these many rupees per page. Then I did 10 pages and then I charged this much, right? Thing that's wrong about that approach is, bro, sabji mandi thodi बैठी हुई है यहाँ पे. Like we're not selling by kilo over here. We're like हाँ 10 screens के इतना हुआ. Right? There's no MRP here when it comes to that. There's no standard price of tomatoes and potatoes. What we're designing here is we have a service. We're providing a very valuable service. We are helping you make a website. This website will solve a problem for your business. It will get you more money. It'll get you more customers. It'll help you save money. It'll create all of this value for you. What's the price of something like that? Right? Very tricky question and very interesting thing to think about as well. But the answer in general is you want to really charge as much as you can. There's no you want to charge as much as you can. And the way you discover this is, let me just say, a website. I can definitely find a designer who will do it for 1,000 rupees. Design a website for me. That 1,000 rupee designer is going to be a pain to work with. They're going to make excuses. They're going to say, nahi, meri class hai aaj, to main next week karunga. They're going to stop it midway. They're going to have a 3-month gap in between where they say, nahi, end sems hain, so I can't do it. And that is not good for me as a business. The reason I might pay an agency 5 lakhs to design a website, because I know that when an agency says, I will do this, they will do it. Similarly, that comes with that accountability. Similarly, as an individual, you want that perception. When clients look at you, they should be like, Manav, I want to work with Manav. Not because he's the cheapest, not because he's just available, not because he's the only person who I know, because it's so good. Like, I have confidence in Manav. I saw the work and I was like, wow, I really need to work with this person. I saw the stuff that they did before. I was blown away. I want them to do something like that for me. You want to get to that point. So as an individual, you can pretty much charge anything you want. You can charge a lakh for a website. You can charge 10 lakhs for a website. But the important question here is, do people perceive you as that high value freelancer? And where does that come from? It comes from you having really good skills. comes from you with these skills getting good projects. And eventually, once you have a base of projects, then your job gets easy, right? Your work kind of does the talking for you. Till then, you want to constantly think about how do I become a high value freelancer? And that means getting really good at your work. It means sharing your work really well. It means getting every competitive advantage you can to improve your perception, to improve your skills, to improve your output. So I would say, dude, it's a constant process, right? कहने में कह सकते हैं कि हाँ, just charge 1 lakh for your next one. Unless the other person is ready to pay you 1 lakh, or you are able to, in your confidence, justify that price, it's going to be difficult. You want to constantly do this. It's a constant process. Just imagine this. There will be a point in the future you will be able to charge a lot. Your skills will be amazing. Past clients will be amazing, and everybody wants to work for you, work with you. To get to that point, it's a constant process, bro. So very vague answer, I guess, but let me know if that helped, bro.
Yeah, it helps. Yeah, but what if I like imagine ki someone asked me, what do you would charge for this website? Like, I know this is a really hard question to answer, but yeah, like how to really start to like break down this question for myself. Ki how do I charge him if I can break it down?
Simple way I would there's actually a small exercise that we kind of teach at 10K. And we can kind of do that, a small part of that now. Whenever you have a client, you want to go through this simple exercise where you want to think about these questions. Number one, what's the minimum I would do this for? And you don't want to, of course, reveal this instantly. But you want to kind of think about this, right? Somebody comes to you with a website, you're like, you know what? I'll do it for 5K. Will you do it for 4K? Will you do it for 3K? Will you do it for 2K? There will be a number where you're like, it doesn't make sense to do it. You want to find what your minimum is. Then you want to think about what's my maximum that I can charge for this confidently. I'd say, okay, I can charge 3,000. I'm not going to feel confident, let's say. 50,000, yeah, I'm kind of confident about that, but I'll have to take care of these things. You want to do this kind of exercise, think about your minimum, think about your maximum, get on a call with the client. You never want to reveal your price in the first call itself. You want to ask questions. You want to get an idea of how long will this project take me? I do it in the time that they want me to do it in, anything else. And then you want to say, let me get back to you with the price. And then you want to go through this exercise where you say, what's the minimum? What's the maximum? And basically, it's an answer of charge somewhere between that minimum and maximum. If you are high confidence, vibing, this client trusts me, I think I can do a really good job, I have all of this experience, charge them what your max is. If you're not confident, charge them, 1.2x of your minimum, 1.5x of your minimum. As you do this process, you will notice that your minimum keeps going up. As you have more options, you're like, bro, मैं 10,000 में तो मैं अभी नहीं खोलूंगा. You want to get to that point. Try this exercise out and see how that works.
Okay, this one. Yeah. Thank you. I love your content though. Great work, Abhinav.
Thank you, bro. More content on the way. YouTube is starting very soon.
Let's go. Best of luck.
Abhinav, just to check, how long do we have?
I'm not sure. I'm actually good for another 10-15 minutes and then I have to drop out.
Cool. Yeah. So we'll be taking the last 4 questions, I believe. So Dev, you can go ahead. Dev, if you're saying something, you're not audible.
Okay, yeah, hi. So I'm already started from few months developing React application, and I just wanted to enhance my skill using this UI UX also. So I'm just going through the UI UX concept, and I just wanted to know first, like, what exactly is the difference between UI UX, and which part will help a web developer to enhance its skill?
Let me ask you this question. Why? What's your reason? Why do you want to learn it?
Basically, I wanted to, let's say when I create a website using React or something or HTML, I can still make a very basic website and I have to really learn the CSS, very deep CSS, transition and all. So I found that I can make better CSS and better UI with Figma or something, or after having a UI knowledge.
Is this so
UI
that you
knowledge.
can get a job, or you can freelance, or for just for personal projects?
Freelance.
Got it. So I would definitely suggest, I mean, getting as good as Figma as possible. Really, the main thing developers face when learning design, they're like, dude, it takes me too long to do it in Figma. Developers will be like, bro, it's just faster for me to just do this in CSS. But that's usually because, and do you face that, by the way? Just checking.
No, I'm still like beginner, so I'm just in learning phase of both.
So the thing is, if you're in the learning phase, personally, I would suggest just picking one and getting really good at that. Right? I don't think personally there's a point in trying to do both. एक करो, बहुत अच्छे से करो, get really good at it. But if you do want to do both, I would suggest the first step is definitely just get really good at Figma. UI, UX, thinking about all of that stuff is not really relevant to you if you are not really gonna do UI design projects. For freelance projects, for your own personal projects, since you mentioned you're at an early stage, you just want to get as good as Figma as possible. And for that, you need to practice. You need to keep practicing, collect these examples, try to improve individual things about your design, photography, color. I just shared some screenshots as well of some slides that I made earlier. Think about stuff like this. You want to think about what's the hierarchy in my design? Am I using a good amount of white space? Am I giving emphasis to elements? Is it clear when somebody sees this? What's the most important thing on the page? Right? You want to think about elements from that very, very basic level, and then it comes down to practice. Yeah.
Okay, so one thing is like having good command on Figma and just basic principles would be enough.
Yes, that is enough for you as somebody who's not a
Okay,
full-time designer. Just that is enough.
okay, and you are saying like CSS would be more effective than Figma?
Saying usually developers more comfortable in CSS than Figma.
Okay,
Honestly, I have no clue how the fuck they do that. I'm just way more faster in Figma than CSS. Ideally, what you want to do, you want to just get so good at the tool, it'll take you a couple of projects. You can start using Figma as a way to um, to create variations of your design. Then your final design, what you pick, do that in CSS. Yeah.
and you can export to your CSS also, right, from Figma?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
You.
So I believe the last three questions. So okay. Guys, you can go ahead with your questions.
ब्रो सब अभिनव भैया कैसे हो आप?
What's up, bro? I'm good. How are you?
I am good as well. अरे so the only question was यार cohort रन करने में आपको कोई प्रॉब्लम हो रही है?
बहुत प्रॉब्लम्स हो रही हैं ब्रो,
Tools,
बट सॉल्व
operation.
कर रहे हैं धीरे धीरे.
अरे तो like can you like list few of the problems you are facing?
From what perspective? Are you thinking of doing a
The
startup or
operational
something?
perspective, like what all apps you use, like क्योंकि देखो cohort run करने के लिए it's very hectic, very chaotic because you have to use so many tools. So what all are the problems you're facing? Just wanted to know that.
so far we were doing our cohorts in a very no code type of way. We're using different tools. The website, for example, I
Yeah.
designed it in Figma, did it in Webflow. This cohort onwards, we've actually switched to a tool. We're using this thing called AirTribe,
Uh-huh.
and उन्होंने basically पूरा platform बना रखा है. It's almost like a teachable kind of thing, but made for cohort-based courses. Most of the operational problems actually are now solved with that. I have a lot of mentors around that. बस processes बना रहे हैं. Like I think we now that the cohort has been running for 5, मतलब 5 हो गए हैं. This is the 5th
Yeah,
one.
this one is yeah.
It's mostly scale problems. So for example, जो चल रहा था पहले cohort में, take it to that point. What are the new processes? How do we make sure that our cohort members get feedback on time? उनके assignment के लिए reminders आ रहे हैं. ये working with the mentors and all that. I don't know, bro. I don't know if I can give you a general problem. A lot of them got solved when we switched to like a platform to do it.
But by the way, AirTribe is using Zoom integration, no?
हाँ.
अरे सही है. Okay, that was it. I would say. By the way, love that website design though. The 10K ka website is so good looking. Chalo, yeah, that was it. Have a good day.
Bro, see you.
Hello, Abhinav sir.
What's up, bro?
Can you hear? Thank you so much, sir, for giving this mind-blowing UX design session. It's helpful for a lot. Sir, I want to ask you one thing. I want to ask one thing from your side that being just get started in UX, being a college student, I used to get a bunch of, you can say, a lot of massive online, you can say, courses and resources to learn UX designing and maybe just even get better, getting better and step by step. So I think that's even will take. So how you think that you should use a limited course resources or just focus on 1 to 3 courses and resources or try to learn something?
Important thing to remember is thing that matters to companies and let's say clients if you're trying to find for freelance. What can you do? What do you know? Very important thing to remember is it doesn't matter how much you know. You don't have any examples of how you actually applied it. So these two things will always exist. What you know versus what you can do. What's important for your confidence is the first part, what you can do, learning from whatever courses that you can. When it comes to getting a job, internship, or freelance, they don't care about what you know. They care about what have you done, how you applied those things that you know. There, it doesn't matter whether you've done 1 course, 3, 10 courses. Like from that course, were you able to apply it and actually create something? Site, app, whatever it is that you're freelancing in, are you actually able to create something? And that is the most important thing.
Thank you so much, sir. I don't ask one last question is that, sir. I think as nowadays people see a lot of designers coming on LinkedIn or many social media sites. So do you think you can say it's a lot of people coming designing, maybe you can say hinder the chance of the growth of designing, or you just say it's a part of process as you have said that just growing. So do you think it's good in India that your designing is growing in India? We don't need to get FOMO about it.
And design is growing really good in India. I think the fact that we're seeing so many designers on LinkedIn actually sharing this also means that the number of designers in this people know what design is. People know who are the designers in the field. So that's definitely good, bro. But in terms of FOMO, main thing to understand is, bro, you're playing a single player game. What these other designers do, you want to see if you can get inspired by it. You can maybe see, should I be doing something similar? But in the end, it's your solo game. You want to, let's say, do those courses and you want to create as much stuff as possible. So you can keep unlocking these new levels. So, apne game pe dhyan do. That's the main thing there.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. It's very helpful for me. Thank you so much, Chandan sir, as well. Thank you, bro. Thank you.
You don't need to call us, sir. I mean, you can just call us by name. It's fine. Yeah. That's okay. No problem. Prasad, you can go next.
We are doing that. First one. Currently, I'm learning about the cognitive biases which which will have a huge leverage on while making the decisions when a user using the application or the website. And what is your take on letting about the cognitive biases and implementing on our decisions while taking the design decision?
Very general question, but I'll give you a general answer to this.
Okay.
As a designer, one thing that you have to constantly think about is how will people interact with your product? You have to think from a person's perspective rather than your own perspective. So cognitive biases in general are useful. It's just a useful way to understand human psychology. You can look at that and you can say, okay, this is how I expect people will behave. And if I expect people behave this way, I can design in a certain way to match that expectation. A general answer. But if you have anything specific in that, right, for your own project, maybe you're trying to do something, I can go deeper.
I'm getting to know about those things. But actually, I'm a beginner, a UX designer. So I want to know if that have exactly or does it have any impact in the design? I don't know exact stuff on that part. I want to know about from you.
As a beginner, the main
Yeah.
thing you want to focus on, as a beginner, personally, I don't think it's very relevant because the challenges that you face as a beginner, you're not trying to do stuff like this. You're trying to more about how do I design something that looks good? How do I justify my design decisions that I've taken? Can I work with people such that they, how do I have a good process around it? Beginner, I'm not really sure where cognitive biases fix in. That would probably be something that you will experience when you do hands-on work. If you're working on a hypothetical project, you probably will not have the chance to think about cognitive biases and apply all of that. The minute you're designing something for the real user, whether it's freelance or something, while designing, you can think about whether any of those are relevant. Cognitive bias is a very general thing. You have to know when you want to apply it. That will take time for you to recognize.
Okay. Thank you, Abhi.
Thanks for asking, bro.
Damn, I've been speaking with my mic muted. Cool. So, Abhinav, there's one more person. Can we take this last question?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Yes. Harsh, welcome on stage. Harsh, I've sent you the request and you can be here. All right. Hi, Harsh.
What's up, Harsh?
Harsh, if you're saying something, you're not audible. Okay. I think it's a network discrepancy. Harsh, if you can also put it on the chat, I'll take it up for you. I don't see you typing as well. Okay, cool. Guys, so before we end the session, so how do you think this session is? Show your gratitude towards Abhinav by putting a GIF or an emoji on the chat. Guys, can we see this?
Awesome. I'll be
Guys,
looking
be super
forward
active.
to some. Good to see this. If any of you want to share something on Twitter, feel free, go ahead. If you want to ask me something, you can definitely DM /Instagram. Of course, I'll try to get back to it whenever I can, but check that out. I also have new YouTube videos coming up, which will be useful if this is a field that you want to get into.
Thank you so much, Abhinav. Thanks for coming. I hope you enjoyed your time here, and we though definitely did. In fact, there's a lot that we've learned, and thank you again for coming.
See you guys. Bye.
Well, that is the session with BlueLearn, featuring Abhinav, the man. And my name is Chandan Perla, and along with me is the BlueLearn team. Thank you so much for Abhinav for coming today, and see you again in the next one. And guys, by the way, huge announcement. Tomorrow we have tons and tons of events because tomorrow is the day it's gonna clock 2 years since this server very started. Um, so we have a lot of events, huge giveaways. In fact, there is a stand-up comedy show as well. So looking forward to see you guys there tomorrow as well. All right. So I hope you enjoyed your time here and see you again in the next one. Bye.